You are listening to the Pilgrim on the 405 with Will Christ. Join him as he and his guests discover how businesses thrive in California.
So welcome to the Pilgrim on the 405 on this beautiful day. Unfortunately, we've got some smoke in the air from the fires in Anaheim. But welcome. We're going to be talking today with a wonderful resource for businesses in Southern California, because Christopher Skorina is a consummate attorney. And when you think of attorneys, sometimes you can think of issues that might have affected you in the past. But the reason we want to talk to Christopher is we want to help companies to protect themselves from surprises. This is not about going to war after the surprises have manifested. This is about looking at the long-term value of a business and how to protect that from compliance issues, from partner issues, and any other issues. So welcome, Christopher.
Thank you. Well, good to be here.
So tell us a little bit about how you got into Southern California legal business.
Well, I started my law practice with a very large international law. But I had an entrepreneurial bent as well. And I found with big law, the big law firm, we had great clients, and I was privileged to work with some incredibly talented folks. Just wasn't feeding that entrepreneurial spirit, if you will, in me. So I decided to come out and join Ray Mosier, who's since retired, but it was Ray and I for a while. Smaller businesses, and it gave me a couple of unique perspectives. One, I became a business owner in California, and oh my goodness, was that a shock. From being an employee at a big law firm where everything was basically taken care of for you, you worked hard and you worked long hours, but there was a whole other world out that I had no knowledge of. It was a real baptism of fire. So now, when I have business clients, I know exactly what they're going through, having gone through it myself, still going through it. So it was, it fed this entrepreneurial spirit and also awakened me to the burdens and the opportunities available to small business in California. And then there's another story. Early on, when I was here in California, I had a young businesswoman come to me, and she had a wonderful business model, but she was in trouble because she, unbeknownst to her, didn't have workers' compensation insurance. And as you know, as most employers need to know in California, that's a big deal when you don't have workers' compensation insurance. And she was concerned because she couldn't afford this claim. She couldn't keep her business running. She couldn't afford to hire a lawyer, she thought. So we tossed that down and we talked about what the problem was, did some investigation, and found out that there was a fraudulent insurance broker that was just cranking out certificates of insurance, collecting premiums. So we assured her we'd worry about the fees later. We went to litigation. That was the case where we had to go to litigation. We managed to get coverage and resolve the workers' compensation claim and ultimately get her paid all of her fees and costs back. That was a real success story. And I got to see it up close because she's now been a client for close to 20 years, and she has multiple employees now. She's got a couple of other locations that she's opened up. But it was on that precipice. It was on the verge of failing. It was on the verge of failing. I think that we had some part in saving that and leading to wealth creation and job creation for the families that she's able to support through her business. That's a really good feeling. That's what it's all about.
Well, that's right. I was just going to agree with you that is what it is about. The world that we live in is one of supporting these entrepreneurial agents. These people have great ideas who can bring great value to the world in which we live. I mean, when you look around, everything that we have at one point was an idea. And most of them were ideas from a whole life cycle of envisioning, manufacturing, creating, making it possible, and growing that business around it to support the efforts to bring value to other people. And so that's what I wanted to begin to talk about today is how you as an attorney can help these entrepreneurs avoid these big surprises. So tell us a little bit about what what a business attorney for, roughly, what's the size of the companies you work with?
Well, we work with anyone who's that entrepreneur with an idea, a single person coming in the door with an idea, up to around 200 employees. That kind of small to medium-sized business market is who we can help. And foundationally, whether they're coming to us right off the bat or they're coming to us after having been in business for a couple of years, we want to see what I call the foundational documents of the business. Where's your shareholder agreement or your operating agreement? Have you thought through if you have investors, have you thought through with those folks an exit strategy? Begin with the end in mind. What if this happens in the business? What do we do? What's our response if that happens in the business? So we try to anticipate by conducting fairly lengthy initial meetings and interviews, find out about the people involved, about the business involved, the particular risks and opportunities they face, and play some what-if scenarios with them. What do we do if this happens and that happens? And try to structure those foundational documents in such a way that we've anticipated those crises and there is a agreed upon ahead of time plan for how we're going to address them and how we're going to move forward, so that you consult the document. The corporate book is the Bible. You consult those foundational documents, and your answers will be in there. That answers that everyone has agreed to ahead of time, so you avoid that 3 to 4 to 5 year lengthy litigation where nobody wins except the lawyers, and that can be devastating on the business.
Well, it seems to me that as we were discussing before, that there's really two roles that a business attorney, can play in the life of a business and supporting it. One is certainly to fight the battle after communication has stopped. I mean, to go into litigation, which is one of my business litigation attorneys says is really, it's really the sport of kings, because you have to write big checks, and you may wind up winning an ego battle, but it's always a huge financial burden. And so wanting to avoid that, it seems to me the major portion of value that an attorney brings to a company is with regulations, comply with what the legal ramifications or the legal needs of a business are, and to help the business to some degree begin to strategize about how to avoid those major surprises.
Absolutely. There used to be an ad campaign. I think it was Mr. Goodwrench, and it was, "You can call me now or you can call me later." Mm-hmm. Remember that ad campaign? Mm-hmm. And a business attorney is kind of the same way. You can call me now when we can put things in place that make sure that you're in compliance, that make sure we've planned through as many foreseeable what-if scenarios in the future as possible, and you have a formula for dealing with them. Or you can call me later, and after you've been served with a lawsuit, or after you need to serve somebody with a lawsuit. So we do spend a great deal of time on compliance, and as you know, Will, California has a full-time legislature, and they are constantly passing new laws, and there's new sets of regulations that serve as a gloss on those laws. So it's very, very difficult for businesses to stay in compliance, to know, for example, what they're supposed to be doing. You could probably go into any business here in Southern California and find something that they're not in technical compliance with. So I encourage folks, and whether it's my firm or some other firm, if you're in business in California, develop that ongoing relationship with an attorney that you trust, that you can pick up the phone and have a 5-minute phone call with and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Do you see any issues with that? What do you think about that?" Just have that relationship, that trusted advisor in your kind of cabinet, if you will, a cabinet of advisors that can assist you. And that 5-minute phone call may save you tens of thousands of dollars later on down the road.
I heard a couple of weeks ago, I heard from an advisor to major health companies, and he said that there was a time several years ago that Kaiser Permanente had put out a white paper, and in that white paper they said, "We consider it a failure on our part when somebody is admitted to the hospital."
Interesting.
A failure because we have not provided them with the health care that would have avoided that hospital visit.
Exactly. And in many in contract cases, certainly, the reason you end up in court in a business contract case is because there was a failure of the document to address the particular situation, and now there's an ambiguity. And lawyers make fortunes and clients lose fortunes in the world of ambiguity. What does this mean? Well, you know, it's the country song that says we all live in a two-story house. He's got his story and she's got hers. Well,
right.
that's why our courtrooms can be jammed with these
Right.
cases. And it's very important to sit down and think through those issues and be clear about what the problem is and how you're going to address it.
Well, tell me, I've heard a lot about services where a business can buy a service. What are they called? Legal Shield or
Legal Zoom.
Legal Zoom.
Oh, Legal Shield is that is kind of a legal insurance type of. Yeah. Early on, when I was first starting, I looked into it. I don't want to disparage any company, but the issue that you have with Legal Shield is that the reimbursement rates for lawyers are very, very low. So at least it used to be when I looked into it, and this is about 15, 20 years ago. So. And then you have this kind of third party intervening in the relationship between the lawyer and the client, which is always an issue for us as lawyers. Our paramount duty is to our client. We spend a lot of time educating ourselves about that and making sure that we comply, this whole code of ethics for lawyers, and keeping the client paramount. So when you introduce someone else who's the payor in this loyalty, to say that you can't use those services to find a good lawyer who could help you and solve your problem, it's just, there's just things there to be careful of.
Well, now, the real issue is not just having documents. It's having documents that are going to prevent, you mentioned, ambiguity. They're going to prevent surprises. Now, for a business owner, I suppose a business owner would be frightened away when he hears about tremendous costs around litigation and attorneys. Should a business owner be thinking, I really can't call an attorney or develop a relationship with an attorney because it'll cost me too much? No, it shouldn't. When you contact a lawyer's office and you start getting into the background of whatever the issue is, that lawyer should be able to outline for you multiple different courses of action. Okay, we have, if your legal budget is this, then recognize that I can do this, this, and this for that legal budget. These are the things that we're not going to be able to get done. Okay, but if your legal budget is that, then we can add those things and so forth. So as long as the lawyer and client understand what the budget is and what they're going to receive for within that budget and what they're not going to receive, and the potential risks of not having that in place now, then that's fine. That's perfectly fine, and it should not be a situation where a client is afraid to pick up that phone to call an attorney, because most attorneys aren't going to charge you for that first conversation anyway. My firm, certainly, we offer a complimentary consultation and give you sit down with you. I've actually had meetings that go on for over an hour with clients without charging them, to make sure that we're on the same page. That communication on the front end, setting expectations, agreeing upon a budget so that they're in control of the costs. So, do you ever have a relationship with a client where you are on a retainer with them to simply be their attorney of record?
You know, that is kind of an old style of relationship, and we don't. It's regular communication as to what the costs are going to be, and in my lifetime in the law, which is almost 30 years now, we have seen a dramatic increase in the costs of litigation, not necessarily attorney's fees, but, for example, taking depositions. Depositions are very expensive when you get into the litigation process. Expert witnesses, oh my goodness, in my next life I want to be an expert witness. Oh my goodness, because they get paid win, lose, or draw. You know, the experts get paid. So experts are expensive. Filing fees have increased dramatically. It costs about $500 to file a lawsuit in Orange County. So these are things for small business owners. It matters. Those things matter.
Is it reasonable that I can be in business in this range of 10 to 250 employees? Is it reasonable to assume that I can conduct my business in a way that I have a low probability of being involved in a lawsuit?
That's interesting. We are in California. We are in California, but I would say that there are certainly things that you can do and should be doing to minimize the likelihood of finding yourself in litigation and to reduce the costs of that litigation by making sure you have adequate insurances in place if litigation does happen.
Is that part of your role as a business attorney, as a trusted advisor, to help me as a business owner in that 10 to 250 employee range, to help me do those things?
Absolutely, absolutely. One of the things that I sit down with and I encourage folks to do is let's take a look at who are your advisors and mentors. You need a lawyer. Hopefully that'll be me if we hit it off and it's a good fit. You'll need an HR person, a compliant HR person to contact. Probably going to need a banker, a good relationship with a banker. You need an insurance broker to make sure that you're getting good insurance coverage for those risks that can be insured against. And then it's your lawyer's job to draft your contracts in such a way that you shift away from you as many of the risks of your business as you possibly can. And we do that through insurance and indemnity clauses and such.
So how do I, as a small business owner, build that relationship without turning it into a transactional relationship where I might be inclined to hold back because I don't want to write that check? How can I get into the place where that's... I suppose it's like, how do we have health care that keeps me well rather than comes into effect when I get sick?
Well, it's investing in that relationship, and it's both ways. The client can't be afraid to call the lawyer, and the lawyer can't rush for the billing software program as soon as the phone rings. Okay, you have to develop a relationship between them. There's a give and take. There's an investment of time on both sides for the relationship to really work. And if the lawyer is billing for every single second that he's thinking about the client matter, then that client's going to get a bill, and one, they're going to be surprised, which violates one of our principles, is we don't surprise the client in regular communication, and two, they're going to be shy about calling that lawyer for when it really matters, and that's going to hurt the client. And at the end of the day, that client's going to say, hey, well, you were my lawyer, and the lawyer's going to say, well, but you didn't call me. And so,
right.
And now, so that's not good for anybody.
Well, that's what I want to spend a little time in the next, when we get back from commercial. I want to talk about how we create that relationship. I mean, you've talked about this cabinet of advisors, which I think is essential for businesses today, because no founder, no CEO, no president, no owner is going to be competent in all the areas that they need to be. And it's not just California. I mean, I use the example of Alaska. If we are in Alaska, part of the issue of being in business in Alaska is the temperature. And you can't expect an entrepreneur to be an expert in how to deal with these low temperatures. And so we have to develop a relationship either with the people who've been there long enough to experience and learn how to deal with it, or professionals. And so what I want to be talking about when we get back from the commercial break is, how do we go about creating that group of advisors that aren't there as vultures waiting for me to fail so they can pick my bones, and how can I build that relationship so that they will advise me on how to be in compliance with the places that I want to be in compliance in, and to protect me from surprises.
Okay.
So let's think about that as we take a break here for a word from some of the sponsors of our radio show.
Hi, It's time for another tip from Sandler Training. Never ask for the order. Make the prospect give up. Always ask for the order is the salesperson's 11th commandment. You know, the one that just dropped right off the tablets. Never ask for the order goes completely against traditional selling methods. If you don't ask for the order, how will you ever know when the customer is going to buy? Well, think about it. The only person who can really ask for the order is the prospect. Find the prospect's emotional needs first, provide the answers to meet these needs, and you'll discover that the prospect will give up and ask you for the order. And that's another tip from Sandler Training, finding power through reinforcement.
All right, now back to Will and his guest.
So back to Christopher and talking about with Christopher Skorina, talking about how a business owner, especially in this 10 to 250 employee range, how that business owner can build this group of advisors who are not just transactional. They just don't come in like a plumber does when you have a leak in your water heater, but somebody who's going to be there to help advise you on all the plumbing issues that you might have in your home. And so I'm looking at what can a business owner build so that he's regularly in touch with the variety of places we talked about, having an attorney, having somebody who's in HR, somebody who's going to be looking at health benefits, somebody who's going to be certainly a CPA, these various aspects of running a business that no business owner has either the desire to become an expert in or is an expert in. So what might be a way that a business owner can begin to build that cabinet of people?
Well, one way is once you find an attorney or a professional within that group that you trust and that you like, get referrals from them. Face-to-face referrals are key. Then you have the endorsement of someone who's actually used them before. I mean, our best clients come from our current clients. Our clients constantly refer us to their friends, in some cases their competitors. So once you're plugged in to that community, you can certainly do that. And a business lawyer or any professional who's been in business for a while has those relationships, and you can tap into them. We can work to find, for example, an appropriate insurance person or an HR compliance person for our clients, and we do regularly. Another avenue for folks is industry trade associations. I'm a member of a couple different industry trade associations, and I know that that's a good way to build knowledge about a particular industry that professional is in, and it's also a good way for members of that industry to find professionals that they need. So those are a couple of ways to do it.
And now, should the business person be consulting regularly, even if there's not an issue right now with their advisors?
I would say yes, because the advisors are in a position to know what's coming. Advisors are in a position to, you may not see an issue because you're in a business and it's not your job to see a potential regulatory or legal compliance issue. But pick up the phone and just have a regular communication. I try to stay in touch with my clients on a monthly basis. They get a report as to whatever the active matter is that we're working on, and invite them to give me a call if they have any questions or concerns. So we try to stay in regular communication. That's very important to head off things before they become too big of a problem.
Well, and as you mentioned, we have a full-time legislature. And in the same way the weather in Alaska keeps changing, the regulations keep changing, the laws keep changing, and then the compliance issues are forever changing. And would you say that that's your expertise, is to know what's coming?
Well, we definitely try to stay on top of it. We definitely try to stay on top of those things that are going to matter to our clients. As you can imagine, we get daily updates and daily reports from the various groups that we're part of, trade associations and listservs, and of course the bar associations. So we get daily updates on what's going on and try to alert those specific issues that potentially pertain to our client base. We keep them informed.
So in a real sense, you can become the legal arm of every business who is your client.
Absolutely, and we do serve as general counsel for several small companies here in Orange County. We serve as their general counsel, handling everything from their their shareholder agreements, their vendor agreements, making sure they have insurances. We have regular meetings with them just to make sure everything is going as well for them as possibly can be from a regulatory and legal compliance standpoint. Absolutely.
So when you serve as general counsel, is that a retainer?
No, not for our clients. For our clients, no. These are long-standing relationships that we've had, and we just bill them on a monthly basis or quarterly basis whenever the bill reaches a certain threshold.
So is that a relationship that a business that's intending to grow should be seeking? Is to find out who their general counsel is?
Yes, I would definitely recommend that if you have someone who is knowledgeable about the general legal issues that you're facing, as well as maybe some industry-specific issues that may pertain to you, they either know it or they're willing to invest the time to get up to speed and invest the time in developing that relationship with you off the clock, not billing for every single second that they're thinking about the matter or they're spending
that's
with
what
you.
That's the area that I'm looking at. I mean, for instance, I'm the president of our homeowners association. I mean, it's 6 condo units in Laguna Beach, so it's not huge, but we have an older building that we are responsible for. And when we think about plumbing, we don't just want to bring in somebody that's brand new to the building when we have a leak in a pipe. We want somebody to come in and begin to learn about how this building works. What are the peculiarities about it? What do we want to be doing over the next 5 to 10 years with the building? And so as we look for these relationships with various vendors, we're asking them to spend time learning about who we are, how we work, and what the building is. Would that be something that a business owner should be looking for in these various advisors?
Absolutely. It's about developing that relationship. It can't be transactional. It has to be relational. By that, it transcends any one interaction, any one thing, because you're looking at long-term relationships. The relationship between a lawyer and the client is built on trust and confidence, and you just have to have that trust there, and that only builds up by spending time with each other. It only builds up by the lawyer taking the time to do something for the client and the client's business without, again, obsessing over the cost, without obsessing over the billings.
Yes, and it seems to me that relationship is important. I'm wondering, is it also important for the attorney as standing there as the legal arm of a business, as the one who's advising in legal things, to understand what the values of the business are? What is it they're trying to do? What's their passion or cause or purpose? What are they? What's the niche that they're working in? What's their 10-year goal? Would those things be important?
Those things would be important to know because it would impact how you put things in place today. You would like to know where the client sees themselves going in 10 years. For example, if they want to go public someday, if they want to take it public, an LLC is probably not the way to go, right? You want to be a C Corp. You want to develop those audited financial statements so that when Wall Street takes a look at you, you've got all your ducks in a row and you're lined up, and you're preparing for that end game, preparing for the exit strategy. So it is important to know where they want to go, what they want to do. It's important to know, is it a family-run business? What's the next generation like? Next generation interested in mom and dad's business or not? And do they get along or not? And have we put something in our shareholder agreement and our foundational documents to account for the fact that maybe Junior doesn't get along with his sister? Someone going to get a divorce? I hate to see that happen, but it does happen. And what happens when the divorcing spouse says, I want half of your business interest? And all of a sudden, the other shareholders are looking, hey, I'm going into business with her or him who's leaving. So these are complex issues that have to be thought out, and especially when you talk about family-run businesses, it can be difficult to get folks to talk about it. This is where the lawyer often becomes almost a therapist, where you have to force the family to come together and address these issues and think about potential solutions now.
And you're not the first advisor who has mentioned that it's more than just the specific area of skills that they bring, that they're also involved in an evolving relationship to help this company and the people in the company, the leadership team, to get to where they want to get what they want from the business.
Absolutely. And a lot of times they don't know. They're not sure. They haven't thought about it before. And part of what I do, and I can't say, I guess it's a lawyer's role to do, but it's part of what I do is just, well, let's think about, what do you want?
Mm-hmm.
Where do we want this to be in 10 years, in 15 years? What is the purpose for you getting up and doing this?
And that's what I've found from the entrepreneurial operating system that I've shared with you is that this framework of helping a business understand what it's trying to get from itself. What are the various elements that we have? How are we going to market? What do we need to do in the next 3 years to get to where we want to go eventually? And what do we need to do in the next year and the next 90 days? And having a way of holding each other accountable for all of that. And that's where I think advisors can play a tremendous role in supporting these businesses as they move forward to accomplish their goals. And the goals are always helping us get clear about what we want from this business and how do we get there.
What's been fascinating for me too, Will, is to watch how energizing it is when you start asking those questions, because a lot of business folks, a lot of business owners just have their nose to the grindstone, and they're working so hard, and they're working so hard, and they're working so hard. And when you start asking those 10-year, 15-year questions, they have to take the nose away from the grindstone and really think about, wow, what could be? Think about the possibilities. It's not just the day-to-day and the month-to-month, but where could we be in 10 to 15 years? And that reinvigorates the passion within them, because now they've thought about those issues and they've got some idea through talking with either someone like yourself or another advisor that, my goodness, yes, this is why I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this for the kids, for grandkids, for whatever it may be.
Well, and also what I believe happens with entrepreneurs is initially they get a sense of how they can bring value to the consumer or to the marketplace. And it's that value, which it's bringing that particular value that builds the company. And as the company grows, if you've probably seen owner-centric businesses where the owner makes all the decisions, everybody else lines up outside the office on a daily or weekly basis and says, what do you want me to do next, coach? Right?
Right. Oh, absolutely.
And that limits the ability of that company to grow, to provide greater value or more variegated value. And it's when they begin to let go, what we tell people is to let go of that vine where they're holding on for dear life, because the fear of if they let go, nothing will happen. And so begin to develop that management group so that they actually take responsibility for the various departments in the business and begin to develop their own skills. If they all know where they're going and they're all rowing in the same direction, then it's easy to hold each other accountable. And that's where I see the advisor's role is to help these people as they're developing their skills in the departments for which they're responsible, to also to bring to bear these legal, medical program, HR, all of these various places that expertise is important, because not only are they helping the business succeed, they're also educating the leadership there, because many of these leaders will go on to lead their own businesses.
Absolutely. And of course, that's one of the things, though, that the owners fear, right? Is they're going to invest in folks, and those folks are going to leave them, and we have to address that. Have to address those issues by retaining them. And you can train and retain. You can certainly do that, and that is an important part of growing your business, because if the philosophy is if it's to be, it's up to me, right?
Right.
That's not good. You're not going to get very much.
No.
Not much is going to come into being with that philosophy. So you need a team, and you need to train and invest in that team.
Well, and now my experience, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe you can give me some new insight, but my experience is that people leave from one of two reasons. Now, they'll come and tell you money, but that's not the reason they leave. They come to leave because either there are no more challenges. They've come to the level of where every day is the same thing. They're not challenged to do anything more. They don't have more responsibilities. They have nothing more to learn. And that's not just a personal defect. That happens in organizations where they limit the potential for the growth of an individual. So there's no more challenges, or I don't believe my manager is on my side.
Yes.
And so helping that business owner to create a culture where we are challenged every day to grow, to stretch, to move forward toward the vision that we have for this company, and to get better every day in providing greater and greater value for our consumers, for our customers. And we want to make sure that you know and believe and experience that your manager is there helping you to become the best that you can possibly be. Who would want to leave that organization?
No one. That's right. And you invest in your people. And when I see businesses make the mistake of, gee, there's no place for this person, so I'm going to let them go. I won't fire them, but they're going to leave because they don't see any room for growth or improvement, so they're going to leave. Instead of saying, my goodness, I've got a talented person here. I've got a really talented person. What can I find for them that will take advantage of their talents and give them an opportunity to grow and to flourish? My goodness, talent is so precious and it's so difficult to find, and we as employers spend so much time and energy recruiting it and getting it in the door and nurturing it. Then to let it go because, and I have a specific example in mind of a family-owned business, and the family and members were at the top, and they had a particularly talented individual, but there was no place for that person to go. He could see the writing on the wall. He wasn't a blood relative of the owner, right? So he ultimately decided to leave the company, and I've often thought that company really lost out on an extraordinarily talented person because they didn't invert the relationship and look at what can we find for him that will take advantage of his talents and make us better.
Well, and what we talk about in EOS is we talk about getting the right people in the right seat, not a brand new idea, but we give tools to help people, number one, make sure that the person who they're hiring and the people who are working the organization agree with the values of the organization. So we don't have this disconnect between what values we stand for and what people believe. And so that's important to get the right person, i.e. the person who gets where we're going, gets what we're doing, shares our values. And once we have the right person, it's making sure that person is in the right seat. And that means that they want to do what they're being asked to do. They want to do what they have the opportunity to do. And then secondly, if they're capable of it. And so getting those three things in line, getting it, wanting it, and being capable of it, to me, are the essence of getting the right person in the right seat. Now, the biggest problem is we have somebody who's highly skilled, does a great job, but they don't agree with our values.
Yeah.
All right, and people tell me I can't let them go. But what they don't know, and they come to understand, is that person every day is chipping away at the culture of the company, and it'll eventually cost them more than the value they're bringing. On the other hand, you can have somebody who has great values, we'll just love him, but he's not performing. And now, either we have to find a seat, a place where they can perform well, where they get it, they want it, and are capable of it, or we have to let them go. And those are difficult decisions, but without making those decisions, we're really holding our company back.
That's right.
So how do you help a company with that? I mean, when we have to let somebody go, how do we avoid what some employers, some owners believe is just the inevitable backlash and suit for wrongful dismissal?
Well, you be as gracious as possible in the exit. A lot of litigation stems from perceived mistreatment. It's a interpersonal issue. It's not necessarily a legal issue. And our job as business owners is to make sure it doesn't become a personal issue. That I'm a big believer in being gracious in that you offer a severance. You document, of course, the lack of performance or whatever the misconduct may be. You have a documented trail of all of that. But keep it calm, keep it professional, and I would offer a modest severance in exchange for a release and make sure that you get a complete release of your liability claims and wish each other well and part company. It's difficult. It can be very difficult, but the key is to get the emotion out of it. Keep it it's not a personal thing, and it's difficult for business owners, especially in the small business world that I live in, where a bad employee can cause you some serious harm and some serious heartache, so it can be difficult to calm them down and coach them. I can't believe she did that. I can't believe he did that. I understand, but we got to get through this, and we'll get through this storm, but we're going to do it so that this is the only storm from this person, and this storm's going to pass, and you're not going to hear from this person a year from now, right?
I had a recent experience with a company where there was a difference of opinion between the assistant and the partner about what's the value of being on time, right? And the partner said publicly, you know, the relationships I have with my clients are such that they're delighted to see me whenever they can. And so if I am tardy because I have been focusing in another place on another client, they understand. That's not a problem. Well, the administrative assistant had been in businesses where being on time was exactly the right thing to do and it was necessary. And she wanted to turn the partner into that kind of minder of the clock. And because she wasn't willing to accept how the partner wanted to relate, it was a continued issue. And they finally had to address it. But the issue was, this person is not fitting into this seat.
Right, hadn't bought into that culture.
Right, that's right.
Yeah.
And to me, that's an important piece of understanding what our values are. If clients are first, it may well be that we might be tardy from time to time. If clients are really the ones that we're focusing on, different companies can do it in different ways. They might have different values, but in order to be a supportive member of this particular culture, that administrative assistant had to make a choice. And if they didn't buy into the values, they really couldn't be there.
Yeah, they couldn't be there, and that would be an interesting conversation to have, to be a fly on the wall, to listen to the partner talk to the administrative assistant, and the administrative assistant talk to the partner about the importance of time management.
We literally had that conversation in our leadership meeting, and it was after that they began to realize this is not a fit.
So in that situation, did that assistant move to a different seat on the bus or different bus?
No, she was given a ticket off the bus.
Off the bus.
And part of that, to me, what we do in EOS in some of our leadership meetings is we enter the danger. We don't pretend that elephant in the room is really just a statue. We address it. And
I love that phrase, enter the danger.
Enter the danger, because that's where the productivity comes from. Otherwise, we're limiting ourselves. In fact, I got to tell you, when I when I went to be certified, I'd been using EOS and with clients for a couple of years, and I always thought that the point of it was to become very clear about relationships and very clear about right seats and right people. And as I began to deepen my relationship with the EOS leadership, people who have been there for 10 or 15 years working on this project, they said clarity is certainly important, but it's entering the danger and creating, because you become the crucible for this refinement, this fiery sometimes refinement. You become the place where people can say things that they hadn't been able to say, because then people can get clear, open, and honest about what's actually happening.
Beautiful, beautiful. One of my expressions, similar along the lines of enter the danger, is if you have to swallow a frog, it's best not to stare at it too long. Do the hard things first.
That's right. That's right. And don't pretend that you enjoy it.
Right.
Right? It is dangerous. And things do happen. And in my experience, usually great things happen, because in this particular case, both of those parties, the partner and the administrative assistant, had to take a look at, what do I want to be doing? And one said, this is the culture that I want this to be. And the other had to say, this is not where I'm happy.
Yeah.
I have to find a place where I can do what I do. Well, Chris, what would you recommend to people who are listening to this and saying, wow, that's the kind of company I want to have. I want to have a company where I can build identify, build, and use on a regular basis these advisors to help me without feeling like I can only call upon them when there's a fearful transaction that I have to do?
Well, call us. Call us 949-582-1544. 582-1544. Call us. There's 24/7 answering. I'll get an immediate message that you called, and I'll call you back within 24 hours.
All right. And in doing that, I'm assuming that you're going to be asking them a lot of questions.
Yes. It'll be initial phone call, and then I'll invite them to come in which we will review what's going on and try to get down to the nitty-gritty, the foundational stuff, and see where we can be of best use for them.
Good. And I've been in your office. You have good coffee.
We have great coffee, absolutely.
So find that opportunity to talk with people and explore what's going on in their business. That's essential. And that this is a relationship that you want to begin.
Absolutely.
Good.
Absolutely.
So tell us one more time, what's the number to call?
949-582-1544.
Wonderful. Well, these are the kind of things that we have been exploring and will continue to explore with the Pilgrim on the 405. It's not only how to make more money. It's not only how to exit the business. It's how to thrive with your business in Southern California. So we'll be continuing to bring forward people who are thriving, people who are struggling and succeeding with the very nature of being in business in Southern California, and those people who are finding ways to bring their business to that place where they're thriving in Southern California.
You've been listening to The Pilgrim on the 405 with Will Christ. To hear more of the programs in this podcast, go to www.willchrist.com.
Imagine what it would feel like to lose everything: your job, your home, your family, your dignity. This has happened to thousands